All right, Jason Ruona here. We're back at Yatabe Arena here on the driver's stand with Brent Telke from Team Associated. Brent, what we wanted to talk about a little bit today was for the guy that's never raced on this type of surface before, AstroTurf, carpet, what are some of the things that the guys should do, with your car specifically, and that, could kind of bring them up to speed quickly? What should they expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just getting a car that's pretty neutral to drive, and that starts with your tires. Um, there's a lot of different options out there from different manufacturers, and we don't have a lot of experience with that because obviously, there's control tires here at this event, so most of the running we've done is with the Schumacher stuff. We tested some of the Proline tires, some of the J Concepts tires at the warm-up, but generally, just like in your off-road program, if you run a J Concepts rear tire, most likely you want to run a J Concepts front tire. So you see most of the guys in two-wheel drive running the Schumacher front tire here. It's like, for some reason, the rubber just kind of works together well. So that's where you start. You want to make sure that you have a really neutral front tire, especially if you've never done it before. Also, the common things, make sure you run a little bit lower ride height, specific to the track. We're more in the 19, 20 range where on dirt we'd be running 23, 24. Option pieces to try to move the weight forward. We have, the brass bulkhead, maybe a little bit heavier battery trying to just really settle the car into the track. And then, beyond that, there's other things you can do with radio adjustments, turning some expo into the car, which, numbs out that initial feel of the radio. Limiting your steering a little bit also helps. Those guys that have ran touring car and stuff like that, they have some experience with these types of things, and that's kind of what we drew on, as a group, a lot of experience on different surfaces, not necessarily off-road style, but foam tire carpet racing back in the day, brought a little information in from there. Current rubber tire touring car stuff, and then obviously the stuff we learned at the warm-up was a big help for us.
So, what's a little new for a lot of our kind of guys that race on dirt normally is the gear diffs, and that really kind of dominates in these conditions. What should guys look for switching to a gear diff in a two-wheel drive, and then what type of fluids in a type of four-wheel drive?
Yeah, it's kind of just common knowledge that on the AstroTurf and smooth stuff that you run a gear diff. It seems to just really give the car more rolling speed through the corners. And your diff oil is going to range in two-wheel drive from anywhere from like 2,000 to probably 5,000 or 6,000. So, you don't have to vary much from that. But if the track starts to get a little bit more rough or a little inconsistent, definitely try going back to that ball diff, because that really makes the car a lot smoother to drive, especially if it's bumpy in the corners while you're trying to, accelerate through there. And four-wheel drive, not much different than what we would run on dirt. A little bit thicker in the front. We're running 20,000 in the front now, where we normally run, something like 10 or 15. But just standard 10 or 7 in the rear seems to work pretty well. The one thing we have done here for this specific surface on the four-wheel drive is go to a slipper in the middle, which helps a lot for the power delivery. And the center diff is more designed for those rougher conditions or slicker conditions where you really want to try to unload the front and rear differently. But the slipper just delivers the power a lot more positive to the driver on this type of surface. So those are a couple little things you can do to your drive line that really help get your car in the ballpark.
What do you think about the driving style for this? I mean, Spencer won two-wheel drive. I mean, I think we'd consider him more of an aggressive driver. Maybe Tebow and Cavallari maybe a little smoother of driver. What do you think gave Spencer so much success on this track? And what do you think is the type of things people should be trying to do when they're driving the surface?
Yeah, I mean, we were here at the warm-up, and Spencer kind of struggled a little bit with the pace and with putting together 5-minute runs. I think he went home really focused and really determined. We talked a lot leading up to the event, all through the Nationals and things like that. Obviously, the Nationals were at his home track at Hobbytown SRS, which is a slicks track. And the driving style is very similar. The grip might not be the same. The consistency is definitely not the same. But the style is very similar, where you need to kind of drive. If you're a punch driver like Spencer, you have to kind of drive square corners. You go into the corner, you brake straight, turn, get back on the gas. So I think that's part of what gave him the success. But I think he was also really motivated. He came into this race with great performances at the Nationals. Almost couldn't have asked for anything better, but he asked more of himself at the Nationals. He was so disappointed after the two-wheel drive main event where Cavallari just barely got him to win the two-wheel drive title at his home track. That's the one he really wanted, and he was really emotional, and I think he used that to help channel his focus for this event. And something we talk about a lot, just using that energy that you feel as a driver and focusing it into your concentration. And it showed on the track out there. He was amazing, A2 and A3. Even A1, he was really good. His worst run of the entire week was a 4. I mean, that's a lot of people's dream, is to get a 4 at the Worlds, and his worst run was a 4. So very impressive, very proud of the kid, very proud of his whole program and the people that have supported him to get where he's at now.
So, it wouldn't be right if we didn't ask about how you see these tracks developing and how that is going to change you guys' maybe focus down the road. I mean, people obviously are asking, I'm sure, about this car. There's not a lot of photos out there available of the winning two-wheel, but is this thing going to be available, or parts, or is there any plan?
I mean, we designed the car specifically for this track. You talk to a lot of the European drivers that run on AstroTurf or carpet a lot. They say this is a unique surface. So I think we had that as an advantage, honestly, as a company. Again, we drew on a lot of information that we'd had from previous events, the testing here, and went into our development with an open mind, and did some things that we thought specifically suited this event and this track. But going forward, obviously, it's a surface that is part of racing. Do I think it's the right way to go? I don't know. For me, I want more people racing. If this is what people want to do, and it gets more people interested in the event, in the racing, into RTRs, things like that, it's a lot easier than going out and cleaning your car after running with muddy conditions or whatever. If that's the way that the industry's going, we'll obviously be there to develop and support the vehicles.
Do you think that that this is going to grow just a little bit more in the U.S. In the next year just because of this event?
I think there's potential to, but I also think that the United States is really, how do you put it, a little bit more traditional in their racing. There's a lot of heritage out there throughout the Midwest, whether it's the outdoor racing there, or a lot of indoor tracks with the great black dirt they have in there in the Midwest, or down in your region with the Florida stuff. Nothing beats going to somewhere like Lake Park and out on a nice sunny day and burning some laps. I mean, that's for me the greatest feeling. So I think you'll see some pop up here and there if the conditions are right, the surface is right. Maybe the weather's not so good in certain parts of the air and certain parts of the country that really dictate the need for this. I could see it growing. Back when West Coast was around and they had their dirt track and their asphalt track, I was good friends with Danny Stojakovic, and we had discussed doing a carpet track over there, and he was open to the idea, but also kind of didn't want to be that guy that started it. And maybe it was a little early for the industry just because, the main players didn't have mid-motor vehicles at that time. We didn't really know a lot about it, but do I want to see this become the norm? Absolutely not. I think off-road racing specifically is intended to be on dirt. But again, if the events are out there and it's what the racers are drawn to, we'll be there to support it.
All right, well, that's Brent here with some tips and tricks, and he's also kind of dropping some knowledge here on the surface that we're racing on, and maybe hitting a little bit of future into the Team Associated line. And obviously they're going to be there to support all their fans and all their customers. So thanks, Brent. We'll try to catch up later, and good luck in four-wheel.
Thanks, homie.